is relative.
It probably is. So what excitement have you been up to?
Yeah. Quite interesting. I was just becoming aware of, don't think I was consciously thinking, but I really about perhaps what you and I have been talking about maybe for the past 4 or 5 years. And I sort of like put it all together and had it, I don't know, and nothing new, I guess, if you go back over the past number of years. But I sort of decided that I am awareness. Okay. Which basically means and like everything. Okay. Does that make any sense?
It does.
Yeah. It's like infinity, awareness, and as part of that sort of process that I've been going through, I've realized that our minds are the biggest obstacles we face, because we are not our minds. We are not our minds, okay? Our minds block our reality to who we are. Okay, the mind is an intrusion. It's something that it's a dark. It's an entity outside of ourselves. And I think a good way to you've been talking recently about the Garden of Eden and the snake. And that's what I see. It's an external entity like the snake represents in the Garden of Eden. That's our mind. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, because it was kind of not as well, maybe it was, I don't know. I was going to say as overt as that, but this week for me, at work, I just got quite stressed and annoyed with some circumstances there. And as I thought about it over the weekend, so I had the sort of realization that, well, I really had two options. I could get argumentative to prove that I was right, or more importantly, I could just make sure that I was right with God.
Yeah.
And they're two very, very different things, And I think, in terms of right with God is that issue about, well, what's really important, like what is important in terms of relationships, and this sort of notion of wanting to be right is exactly that mind, that is self-centered, and everything's about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that snake in the tree wanted you to argue and prove yourself right.
Oh yeah, and it's like that self-righteousness that, well, if I'm right, then that must be a good thing. But clearly it's not.
Clearly it's not, okay?
Yeah.
Because the way you, I don't know how you reacted and so on, but from my perspective, if I was in your shoes, I would have just been the observer. Okay, so he's lying or he's not lying or he's aggressive or whatever. let me just observe that. Do not react to it.
And don't even judge it. Just be curious about it. Yeah.
Yes. No, don't judge it. Absolutely not. Don't judge it. Don't argue with it. Don't let your mind come up with more ideas of why you're right. Okay. Just observe it. Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, for me, the issue is that when you're in that mindset that you want to or need to be right, then that automatically brings an environment where there's got to be someone who's, you know, a winner and someone who's a loser. You know, so someone who's right and someone who's wrong. You know, so it's quite a you know, a destructive mindset, really.
Yeah, and the other is constructive. Okay, and so you would benefit him and yourself if you just observed and didn't react. You both would come away better people from a spiritual perspective.
Yeah, I mean, because like with the study I'm doing at the moment, you know, and it's surprising but not surprising how these things all sort of converge, because the focus of this week and tail end of last week and this week and next week is about the Passion of Christ.
Okay.
You know, so and so what I was thinking about along the journey was well, can you imagine what would have happened if Christ decided that he was going to be right? You know, like with all of the slander and all of the false witnesses and all of the pain and the suffering and goodness knows what. It would have been the dark forces' victory for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It would have been in this case of the discussion. It would have been the serpent.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep,
no, for sure.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I got quite an amount of comfort, really. I guess just thinking about, you know, well, comparing, you know, the relatively minor thing that I found upsetting versus, you know, the incredible circumstances that, you know, that Christ found himself in. You know, so, and that's not about sort of, you know, sort of feeling sorry for myself or anything like that, but it was just a realization, I think, more than anything. A bit like yourself, you know, this awareness, you know, that there is a bigger perspective.
Yeah. So I just came up with, well, I certainly didn't invent it. The word in the awareness was the big thing for me this past week. Just
and how is that translated for you?
Say that again.
How is that awareness translated for you, like in your day-to-day?
Yeah, it got me actually for the first time for a long time to write certain things down, okay? Because I was feeling so like enlightened. Okay, I was feeling, wow, okay, this is, I've been told somehow, you know, what my role is, okay? So that the first before I continue with that, I thought of, you know, what Jesus Christ, the Son of God, said to one of his disciples. Okay, and that was, "Seek ye the kingdom of heaven." Okay, and all else shall be added to you. Okay. And the disciples said, well, where will I find it? Okay. And Jesus replied, within you. Okay. And then, so that was part of this week and then I said to myself, okay, but how? Okay. How? And clearly, because you and I have spoken about this for decades, it's nothing new. It is just like crystallizing this week, okay? And that is what we've just said now. Observe, okay? Don't react, okay? Because we're in this incarnation in a bubble, okay? And so we have to connect someone, with our awareness that is outside of the bubble, okay?
Yeah.
And not take instructions from our thinking, okay? Because the mind and the thinking, the mind is just a liar, okay? Manipulative demon, okay? And it needs to be used just as a day-to-day tool to go through presenting your skills within the bubble, okay? But excuse me, not allowing it to take over and actually dominate.
Yeah, and I think that's true, because like part of the study that I've been doing, they talk about the idea of discernment. So and like an example of that might be like if you're confronted with two decisions, one of someone, old lady falls over in front of you when you're out for a walk, and her handbag drops on the ground. You're confronted with two decisions. Do I help her back to her feet and make sure she's okay, or do I pick up that handbag and make a run for it? So now those sorts of decisions, I would hope, are pretty straightforward and easy, hopefully. But where the discernment gets tricky is when you have two seemingly right things to choose from. And how do you choose between option A or option B? Because as you rightly say, the mind can be incredibly subtle and incredibly devious, and make things look very right or righteous, when in fact, as you work that path through, you see that it's actually not. And so therefore the importance of being able to discern, and just following on from what you've just said, like, well, where is it or how is it? Well, it's within. And I think it's one of those, I don't know whether skill is the right word, but it's one of those skills or spiritual muscles or whatever that I think that we need to cultivate so that we can discern, the right choices. And I think that, you can sort of fold that into things like, good karma and bad karma, and good consequences or bad consequences. But at the time, in the day-to-day living, it can be quite a tricky situation to say, well, what is the right thing to do? And is this sort of notion that I have in my head, is that in fact the right path? And if it's not the right path, then how do I discern that?
Yeah, I think discerning right from wrong or two rights, I think it's still your mind interfering, okay, with respect to the people you're learning from or studying, because we're in this incarnation within a bubble, and whether it's good karma or bad karma, it's still going to bring you back. Okay, you're still going to come back. You've got a list that long of good karma. You're still going to reincarnate. Okay, because you're within the duality of positive and negative. Okay, a whole lot of positive doesn't get you free of karma. Okay.
For sure.
Neutrality gets you free of karma. Okay? So not discerning right from wrong or discerning on a course of action. Okay, it just that's part of really what I came to this week is you know, there used to be a book or something called I Am. Okay.
Yeah.
Long time ago. Okay. And I haven't looked it up or anything like that, but I just recall it, you know, because and in the context of my awareness this week, I am sort of, that makes sense, you know, just stop at that. Not I am this or I am that. I am.
Just am.
Yeah. And so, you know,
and even the word am probably becomes redundant.
Yeah. But I just remember that book. That's why I was referring to it. Came to mind. I'm not even sure whether I had the book or not a long time ago, and because basically what the words I am meant to me this week was, you know, I am the Supreme. Okay, I am God. Okay. And God is me, and I am in God, and God, and He is in me, and so that was then I realized that to, you know, judge something or whatever, you just go through your day doing what you've got to do, and when your mind tempts you with a person being rude to you or whatever, you know, you attempt to just observe, you know, and respond in a way that is neutral.
Yeah.
Okay. As opposed to, well, you're right, or you know, or you're wrong, or whatever. Okay. And it brought me to the thinking of what Moya talks about historically. He talks about the neuter path.
Okay.
So and the neuter path is that connection with you, with eternity and the divine, and that is actually, it's like a I remember him drawing it somewhere. It was like a you know, you get the positive there, you get the negative there, and those two, you know, keep you in karma and so on. But if you want to get out, you attach to this neuter. Your soul attaches to this neuter path. Okay.
Yeah, I remember in the Old Testament there's that that story, you know, where someone says, you know, says to God, like, "Who are you?" He says, "I am who I am."
Okay. That might be where the book came from, you know. Yeah. And then that's the sort of feeling that I had. I just felt that, you know, not that I am awareness. I just felt that I'm awareness. I'm just, and I guess it's just the word I chose this week. Okay. But
well, there's so much that points to it, isn't it? Particularly in the scriptures, you know, the notion of, you know, being created in the image of God, you know, which is exactly what you've just been describing, you know.
Yeah.
And all of that, you know, nonsense in the mind is all of that stuff that seems to show up and occupy so much of our time in the day to day, isn't it? You know.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It is, and I think what I mean, I guess it's nearly impossible, you know, not to on a day-to-day basis sort of react with your mind, because, as you said earlier, it's very subtle, and the circumstances are. But I'm just saying to myself, you know, maybe a few times a day, you know, I am, okay, and I just stop there, okay, because it's like, you know, get behind me, mind, and yeah, and then trying to when things happen, and they happen almost most moments of the day, a thought comes in, and I think the one thing that I've realized in this past week is that there is somebody doing all the thinking, okay?
Yep.
All the thinking, okay? And all the manifesting, okay? So I mustn't get in the way. I mustn't interfere with my thoughts, okay? I mustn't try and create my future or think, what am I going to do? Or am I going to choose that job or that work or that work? Just, somewhere it says, just be still and know that I am there. Okay, I don't know where that came from, but that was the first time this week that came. But yeah, and so that's where I think the secret lies, is in what we're discussing now. And it's not trying to work out whether I must go and meditate or not in order to get closer to God, or whatever it is. Okay.
Yeah, the irony is it's actually do nothing.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, but be aware.
Yeah.
Be aware of your thoughts. Okay. Because your thoughts and your actions, if you react to something that somebody has said, you've just got to be aware of that. And
oh yeah, as soon as you're reactive, you've drawn the sword for sure.
Yes. yes, yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the thing is, it's like walking into a bush of prickles, because it can stick to you,
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that sort of made it, the realization, even all the more powerful, is when you think about things that like in the story of the Passion, the things that were done, like the forces of darkness didn't hold anything back, and yet there was no reaction.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I find incredible. And I suppose when you think about it even further, the fact that, like today, like this moment that you and I are experiencing, is that even though we continue to interact with those dark thoughts and actions and things like that, that everything that was done over 2,000 years ago still continues. So,
but you can understand why.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's and it will continue until everybody has found that neuter path and awareness.
So is your sense of it that it's something that people have to come to themselves? I mean, it's sort of tricky, isn't it, in one sense? Because I sort of think about the value of the notion of like spiritual direction, like support and coaching and those sorts of things. But I guess ultimately it is a decision that needs to be made, in your heart, doesn't it, basically?
Yeah, I'm not even sure it's a decision. Okay. Just to digress,
or a realization, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. You got to be conscious of certain realizations that come. I did a class this week or last week, called The Secrets of the Himalayas.
Oh, okay. That would have been interesting.
And I brought into that class, I just felt, because there are lots of things about the Himalayas and about Mount Kailash and things like that that I'm sure you're aware of. But there's a let's call it a town, a village, a city called Shabalala. Okay, are you aware of that word?
Name rings a bell, but I can't tell you what it is.
I think it probably rings a bell because there was a song when we were growing up with that title or something like that title. But and as I was trying to communicate in this class, Shabalala is a place where the masters of the past, okay, and of the present, okay, live there, okay, but the place can't be detected by satellite, by any instruments, okay, because it's in a slightly off dimension to our current dimension, okay, but it's there. And so when the people are right, when they sort of have an awareness of what we're talking about now, they can go there and find it. Okay, they'll be led to it, and they'll walk into this village. Okay, with all these people, because they are now ready for whatever teachings they can get there, or any experiences, and nobody dies there. Okay, and there are, as far as I've researched, I think there are 2 people from my research that have been there and come out, okay, in a sense. But that doesn't matter, okay, whether that's true or false or is not the point. The point is that it exists, okay, and so only people who have an awareness of and the belief that that is there, I guess, they can go and find it, okay, and there are probably another dozen places on the planet that are similar, one of the places, one of the other places, but I've digressed enough now. But one of the places is in and around and on top of Table Mountain, okay, in South Africa.
Okay.
And you go there by yourself and isolate yourself from people. You can sense there's an energy there, but more than that, I've never been able to see anything or feel anything. Just the feeling of the energy. So, and there are other places. So what I'm saying is, in reply to you don't have to make a decision about it. You've just got to, an awareness will happen, and an inquisitiveness, and you don't deny it. Okay, you just go with the flow. Okay.
Do you think that you seek it?
Say again?
Do you think that you seek it?
You seek it? No. No, I don't think so. Not from this week. Okay. I think probably you and I are just aware 24/7 of the fact that we have that connectivity to some divinity of something or other, okay, and we do tend to, like, you go off and you'll study something online about the Bible or whatever, and I'll perhaps go and contemplate and maybe read some Logos or whatever, but that in itself is, I don't think now, from this past week, Don. Okay, I might have a different opinion next week, but the past week, it's that just by doing things like that, it's like shouting help, help, help. Okay, and there's somebody doing all the thinking, you know, in there and so on, and it's just smiling. Okay, and I guess then comes, you know, maybe the person saying, boy, but I've been sending you revelations, you know, since the day you were born, and you'd rather go and read a book about how to do the connectivity, you know, or whatever. Okay, and so I think, you know, we find these words, as we've already mentioned, is, you know, be still and know that I am. And that's the key. Okay, that's the key. It's not going searching, just be still. In other words, as soon as that devilish mind or serpent comes up again with some very logical type of points, but you know, just be still. Okay. Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah.
It's an incredible thing, isn't it? Particularly as we grow an awareness of, you know, like the nature of the universe that we live in, and, you know, through contemplation, the exploration of even the inner dimensions. And as you say, when you just sort of sit back and probably in awe is probably a good word, and just, you know, sit and just be aware. It's quite an incredible thing, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, you know, there's certain subjects, as you know, that I really enjoy, and I can really do, maybe read or listen to a video or whatever about a particular subject that I like, and I'm just in awe of whatever the subject is, whatever that has been spoken about, or whatever news headlines I'm reading about the moon or something, you know. I read about the moon is solid, in actual fact. Okay, I was always in the impression that the moon was going to be hollow. Okay, at its core, that is, but it's not. It's apparently scientists now, through their various instruments, have been able to prove so. And I think that, you know, I don't argue with them. No, it's hollow in my mind. Okay, okay. It's, I really enjoy the space, and I've also, my mind was heading also this. Not my mind. That's the wrong word in the context of our conversation. But I also had things coming up that I haven't had for a long, long time, 10 or 20 years, like astrology, okay, and astronomy. But astrology, you know, it's all part of the this, you know, it's of everything, okay.
I think possibly one of the things you might be experiencing too is that when you do, you know, have that awareness, you know, of the, you know, the singular nature of you know, that, you know, as you described, as that one entity doing all of the thinking, it probably at the same time, by virtue of that, helps raise your awareness of all of these other dimensions and contexts, and that, you know, if you just take a narrow, you know, 3-dimensional or 4-dimensional view of the world, then it's, you know, just a fragment of what really is.
Yeah, I go along with that. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And yet historically, we do techniques. We use techniques to maybe achieve a goal or something like that. Historically, and I just sort of find it, quite humorous now. Okay, I just yeah.
And I think that, from my own perspective, it's a big sort of reset in many respects, because some of those things that that I clung on to dearly as viewing as important, all of a sudden just disappeared in the quicksand.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And part of that curiosity, I guess, is that when I look at the world around me, and I look at people, and it's not a judgment, I'm sure of that, but it's more of a sort of a curiosity, is when you see, people fixated on, money or consumerism or those sorts of things. It's just like, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that actually their mind is fixated on those things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And they are not their mind. Okay?
No, that's right. And it's the same when
Absolutely
you see
not their mind. Yeah.
when you see bad behaviour, you just think, well, I don't agree with the behaviour, but in terms of the humanity that I'm aware of, it's in the image of God.
Mm-hmm. But if you don't agree with the behaviour, you're also judging, aren't you?
Well, that's right. But I mean, like overt behaviour, like murder and stuff like that, it's the trap to run down that path of judging and trying to. Well, it's a little bit. Well, it's not a little bit. It's like the portrayal of the tree of good and evil, of Ra and Tov, is it's not about something being good or bad. Really, the fundamental issue around that is just not having faith in God to reveal it at God's leisure and will. So underpinning the notion of the tree of Tov and Ra is that mind sort of saying, oh no, I can do that. I can define what's good and what's not good. And of course, all that does is just create an obstacle.
Yeah. As I said at the beginning, that's your mind is the obstacle.
Yeah. So true.